Guys, welcome back to the channel. On this episode, we are going to... I filmed this entire video with a brand new bottle of argon that I got. And I tested and tested, and I thought that, hey, I just suck at welding stainless. And to press on and keep working, and I'll get better as I go. Today I got a new bottle of argon. The argon was bad the entire damn time. Guys, welcome back to the channel. On this episode, we are going to keep working on our hot side of the truck turbo system. So we are going to basically try to get our exhaust passed out of the engine bay. So first thing that we're gonna do is start making up some pie cut elbows. And we're gonna use pie cuts down here and kick this out and up and then pass it back along here and then back down into that little hole right there. And we're gonna use pie cuts on this because if you look at the front wheel when it's actually in here and you turn it all the way to the left or to the right, the inside of the wheel can get pretty close in here because we're gonna run some pretty big meats in the front, so we need to get a pretty tight radius up and out. Up top here are obstacles that we have to clear. Up top, there is going to be a bar that runs from this side of the truck to this side of the truck and pass underneath the intake. And that's going to be a connection point, a bar there. And then there's going to be a bar that comes from that corner of the dash and connects into that bar that is going across. So we need to make sure that we mock that up at least and make sure we don't get in its way. So I'm probably gonna use some cheap, I don't know, I might actually get some PVC tubing or something and 3D print up some little knuckles just to simulate the shapes that I want, and then use that to make sure that we don't have any interference. But for now, I'm going to get started on the pie cut. Okay, so for our welding situation, if you recall, when we made the hot side pre-turbo, we purged everything. So everything on the hot side of the truck that is pre-turbo is purged. The reason I did that is obviously it's a high stress application. There's a lot of heat, a lot of thermal growth, all sorts of stuff going on there. And if there's any contamination or crusties inside the tubing, it can get kicked out and then run through the turbine of the turbo, which is no bueno. For the post-turbo exhaust system, we are not going to purge it. That being said, I do not want, poor welds or incomplete welds. So what we are going to do instead of purging is we are going to use this. It's a Solar Flux Type B. It is a backup flux for stainless steel and all sorts of other fun stuff. And it basically it acts as your flux on the backside rather than running argon and having to shield and burn all that gas, especially on pie cuts and all this kind of stuff. You can use this stuff and wipe it on the inside of the parts, do your welds, and then you're left with a basically a scabbed kind of like slag like you'd have on a stick weld, but you have a good nice burn through on the back, and everything there's no sugar or any carbon precipitation or any of that goofy stuff. So how this stuff works is it's just powder that you get, and then you want to mix it with methanol. I am going to use isoheat. This is like 99% methanol, methyl alcohol. And you want to mix it into sort of a slurry and then coat the back side of your parts with that slurry. And yeah, so that's what we're going to do. I'm going to get this stuff all worked up. I'm going to get the pie cuts slicked up with an acid brush in this paste, and then we will start welding. And I'm going to go ahead and weld them up into 90s or as close to 90 as I can get them, and then we'll move on from here. Okay guys, so we got the pie cuts all welded up, so you can see here, turned out pretty good. I went ahead and tacked on the turbo flange. I'll show you what's going on the inside here. So that is not carbon precipitation on the part, that is the consumed flux turning black. And you can see we have a lot of burn through and deep penetration on the part. So you can see it's not as pretty as a back purging, but if you actually get real close, you can see that that metal is pretty actually shiny underneath that scab of flux. So pretty pleased with the Solar B stuff, pretty neat. Definitely going to use that, continue to use that in the future. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get these welded up, and then we are going to work on our orientation. I need to figure out exactly what I want to do here. If I want to kick these slightly forward or not. I'm either going to go straight up like this or kick it forward to intersect the wastegate, then come back. So I have to decide that. I want to mount the hub back up and the wheel and sort of check some fitment here and verify that I have plenty of clearance, and then I'll make my decision. Okay guys, so I'm going to try to do this one-handed, but you can see I got the pipe welded, or not welded, but tacked up there. And what I have here is just an angle and the big old front wheel. So this is a 12-inch wide front wheel at full lock. And you can see here, if we go to our max length, which will be, or max tire height, which will be 3¼ inches from this surface, we are okay on clearance. Now, if I come down here, I'm gonna need to check that we can get our full 4 inches of suspension travel and not get into any bump situation with that pipe. But generally, it looks like we are gonna be okay to go straight up. Probably at least 1.5 inches of clearance at full crank, swinging past it. Now I just need to check and see how it is if I put it down here at 90 and come straight up, how it's going to clear. So I think we're going to be okay going straight up. Okay, so before we move on and figure out how we want to do this up here, we need to figure out where the tube going horizontally is going to pass. So I went over to my buddy Calvin's and he bent up this piece of chromoly for me. It's 1 5/8 chromoly, and this is going to be placed on top of these pads on either side of the motor and tuck in behind or underneath the intake here. So that's going to be our coilover stabilizer, and that's going to be tied in then to the cage through the dash or through the firewall. So I'm going to go ahead, get this set up, and then make a miter cut. I need to make a cut and tilt this thing like 30 degrees forward, so it can clear the intake. So I'm gonna get that set up and get cutting. Okay, so not so bad. We got that bolted up on both sides and fitted in. You can see there's good clearance underneath the intake there, so everything's gonna look good. And it gives us a place to tie in here to the cage. So that's gonna stiffen up the chassis a good bit where the suspension mounts on. And yeah, I'm happy with that. So moving on, we're gonna get the rest of this worked on here. I need to get some more 3-inch tubing. We're gonna put it right up in this area here and use a little bracket off of this guy to sort of help mount it. And then we'll proceed from here. Okay, so off camera, I cut the 90s that I had into 45s because I kind of like the look of it better with the straight section. I think I'm going to do that in the front here and in the rear. I'm going to do 45s rather than 90s. So all I need to do now is get this upper tube level and situated where it needs to be, and then mock up this tube, stitch it all together, and then weld it solid. Okay, so this is what we got so far. I did sit a pipe down there and sort of figure out where this is going to come up. You can sort of see the angles that I'm trying to do. and get this to tuck in. Before I do any more work back here and getting the exhaust pass back, I'm going to recreate this side over here and duplicate that so that we can make sure that we're working together and I don't get so far ahead on that guy that I can't make this symmetrical going forward. So gonna take that over there, measure everything off, and copy it over to here. Okay, so the copy and paste feature worked pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with the way that worked out. This one, for some reason, is about 1/2 degree tilted up. I think it's the mount, but I can adjust that a little bit by grinding on it. But overall, pretty happy. She's pretty symmetrical. So I'm gonna go ahead here and I'm probably gonna either work on the wastegates next or work on connecting them back down. So let's see what we want to do. Okay, so off camera here, I got this pipe sort of welded up and you can see it kicking down there towards the starter side. So now I just need to match it over here. I'm gonna match it as far as I can, and then once I get to like this tubing here that is going to be our steering shaft, I might have to tweak it a little bit, but overall I think we should be able to get visually a pretty good match. Okay, so I was able to sort of mimic the other side, and I got this just clearing the shaft here, so we should have plenty of room to pass one through, and it's gonna kick inward there towards the other side. So I'm gonna rip this off and burn it in. All right, so starting to work on the wastegate, got the little tube here, just welded up, and now I 3D printed this guy. So he is going to be our miter gauge, and so I'm gonna go cut out a piece of straight tubing, and we're gonna miter it in like that. So nice shallow angle to tie that in, get some good flow out of it. So let's get cutting. Okay, so 3D printed part worked for the win there. I got a pretty good fit here. There's a little bit of a gap that you see on the edge, but it's just the way that the part is beveled. It is tight and touching inside. So pretty happy with that. I'm gonna trace this out, cut the hole in here. I'm gonna make this slightly undersized, the hole that this is rejecting into, because I don't want it burned through, and I'm not super worried about the flow through here, pressure drop through there. So I'm pretty happy with this look. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut that out, tack it up, and then we'll move on to the other side. I screwed up. So I tacked this up like real solid, and while this was all clamped up, but I took it to the bench to weld it for obvious reasons, and she pulled enough with that super tight angle that it came down, I don't know, probably 3/16 of an inch here, pulled down. So I gotta figure out what I want to do. I don't know. Damn it. Okay, so I called my buddy Jason and told him I screwed up, and he said, yeah, you did, but not because of the reason you think. He said, I also need an expansion joint in here. So we already screwed up the fitment, obviously. So what he said was, rather than doing a bellow because of how tight I am here, to use a slip joint. So I went over to his place, he expanded this for me. And now we're gonna go ahead and just miter in a little collar to slide in there. And then we're gonna have a slit joint in here, and then that'll allow for the thermal expansion of the wastegate and all that kind of stuff. And we won't have any issues. So he went ahead and expanded the other side for me while I had it off. So at least that's done. Okay, so we got both sides welded up. Got this one in over here. I cannot tell you the amount of frustration that just occurred off camera getting this done. This is actually like a week and a half later from the last clip. So I got this in, everything's fine. That took a little bit to fit up. I got a new bottle of gas, and I am 95% sure that that bottle of gas is bad. I went through my torch, I went through everything. I went leak tested, soap tested, tested on carbon, tested on, I went through every, analytical level of checking I can, and I'm keep getting a lot of, not even color, like my welds on this just went gray crap. So I'm not happy about it. I think we're gonna be okay crack wise. I'm not gonna crack because it seems like it was just surface, but what a pain in the ass. So this is the end of the episode. You guys can see here, we have a turbo system that's somewhat symmetrical. I do think that this side, when I welded over here, this end, it might have like just pulled ever so slightly, probably about, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch back there at that corner. But overall, I'm pretty happy with it. Weld color, I'm not super pleased. Obviously, you guys have literally seen all of my stainless welding experience, but whatever. So it's all getting sandblasted, it's all getting ceramic coated, it's all getting heat wrapped. So as long as it doesn't crack, I don't really care at this point. I need to get a good bottle of gas and move on and get better, just figure something out. Because right now I'm getting crap out of the torch, and it's way worse than even some of my earlier welds, so I'm not even sure what's going on there, but we'll deal with it. So that's going to be it for this episode. In the next episode, we're going to work on this intercooler and something special here for this intake tube that we're going to make. And if you guys have been watching my carbon fiber episodes, you might have an idea what's coming next. So stay tuned, like and subscribe. I appreciate all the comments and support and tips that you guys give me in the comments. And until next time, have a good one.